Welcome to another video after action report for Great War at Sea by Avalanche Press. Today we're going to be playing Russo-Japanese War, and we're going to play an operational scenario called the Vladivostok raid. Before we start, I want to thank Avalanche Press for letting us put these modules out. They're available to owners of the game, and you can contact me at was-fc.com, war@sea-fleet-command.com, and I can help you get hooked up. What I just need is proof that you own the module, and then we're good. So before I've done these, and what I'm seeing in the stats is that people are dropping off fairly quickly after about 5 minutes. The problem is that operational games take longer than that. So I'm going to try something different here. I've got it all set up, and I'm going to do a quick run through of where things are set up and why they are where they are and what the overall strategy is going to be. And then I'm going to take a break and I'm going to move the ships for a while, and then I'm going to come back. So I'm going to cut away and then come back and hopefully keep this video a little bit shorter and a little bit more interesting. So the scenario here is early in the war, and the Russian fleet at Vladivostok is going to sally out and try and raid commerce along the Japanese coast. The Japanese have fleets in Korea, here in Fusan, and here in Matsuru. Now, these fleets some of them are decoys, and some of the Russian fleets are decoys. So we're going to be chasing across the map, and hopefully we get to see some of that take action. We should run into some combat. There are no submarines here. There's no mines. The only thing that we're going to be using that's new for me is the merchant table to try and get merchant ships, because you get points for the merchant ships. There are heavy merchant ships outside of Japanese major ports like Kure and Kobe and Sasebo, and there are fewer ships outside the smaller ports and outside neutral ports. So we're going to take a look at that now and look at how we move these guys. Okay, so to start out, I'm going to take a look at the fleets here in Vladivostok and see how they're plotted. So I've just plotted a few turns out because all of these ships are on a raid. So on the movement plots, you can see Fleet 1, Fleet 2, Fleet 3, and Fleet 4. Now, I've set these guys up to move at the same speed, because one of these guys, this armed merchant cruiser, is a 1 slow. That means that he moves on odd turns, he moves 1 hex, and on even turns, he moves 2. So because I don't want the Japanese player to determine which is that ship, I'm going to set all of the fleets to move the same, including the decoy. Now they're going to move to different hexes, but they're going to move at the same speeds until it becomes obvious which is which, and then they'll increase speed to what they need to get by. So I'm going to go close these guys up. And then I'm going to take a look at the Japanese fleets. There's 2 of them, one here at Busan and one here. And I'm going to click on this guy and open the plots as well. And you can see that there is a decoy fleet and a fleet that has a bunch of old coast defense ships. The main Japanese force is here at Busan. So the Russian player has to make a couple decisions early on. They have to decide whether they're going to go hunting ships up here in Korea along the Tsushima Strait, and that's a little difficult. So I'm going to head the other way. I'm going to try and go out of the Sea of Japan here, and break out through the channel. And I'm going to get out on the south coast of Japan, the east coast, and come up and down, and we're going to try and raid Tokyo. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check weather. So we have a weather chart, and I'm going to drag that out on the screen. And it is currently clear, so that is better than fog, and it is November through March. This is happening in February. So I'm going to have the Axis player roll a die, and the die is a 4. So for a 4, there's no change in the weather, so the weather stays the same. Now we're ready to go on to the next phase, which is the orders phase. So I'm going to, normally you would do this separately, of course, but I'm going to open these guys up, and I should be plotting 2 moves ahead. So I've got, for my decoy marker, I'm going to run my decoy out here, and it's in M32. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit first, and then we can find that. So the Russian decoy fleet is at M32, which is here, and it is an odd number turn, so it only moves once. So I'm going to move to M31. And then I'm going to go to Russian Fleet 1, and Russian Fleet 1 is in L32, right? And I'm going to have him go to M32 because I'm going to take him around into the Tokyo side and start causing some havoc there. Russian Fleet Marker 3 is the armed merchant cruiser, and I'm going to move him from L32 to M31. I'm going to come back to him actually because there's something here that's modal that wants to be done. So I'm here with the Russian marker. I'm going to get rid of that. Then I can come into here and go into M31. All right, and then I'm going to get my 4th marker here, which is a Russian decoy, and it's in M31 right now. Well, we already did that one because we're checking for turn 5. We're going to be going 2 ahead, so we're on turn 3, so we're going to be doing turn 5. So we're in M34, and we're going to go to N34. All right. Now, why did these guys start on an odd number turn? Well, one of the players gets to decide which turn to start on because that determines whether they start in the night or during the day. And sometimes you want to get your ships out there while it's still night. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to do the Japanese records the same way. So I've set all the fleets plots, and I'm ready to actually move. We're going to also check for air search, but there's no air in this game, so that's going to be fine. We're going to come up here, and we're going to, in Vladivostok, get each of these fleets and move them where they need to go for the first turn, which is actually turn 3. So let's get this guy up. We'll plot for 1. So turn 3 is moving to K33. And then number 2, Fleet 2, is moving to K33, and so is number 1. Number 3 is moving the same one, and I think I know where the decoy is going, also to K33. All right. Now I don't need the moved marker on that, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the moved. I'm going to move down, and I'm going to find my fleets here, so I'm going to look at Fleet 2 and 4. 4 is the decoy. So the move plot for 4, the first turn, is, let's get rid of those Russian fleets because they stay up there, is AA-29. So off we go for AA-29. And then Fleet 2 is going to AA-29 also. Then Fleet 3 is going to U-22, and Fleet 1 is going to U-22. All right. So this is how it's going to proceed for a while, and it is going to take a little while to come into contact. So I'm going to pause this, and we'll come back when we're actually a little bit closer. Okay, so we have come back for a little bit. We're going to zip back out, but I wanted to show you where we had moved by turn 6. So this is a night turn, so the next day is going to be a daylight turn. We might get contact. So the various Russian fleets have moved out of Vladivostok, and they've taken some different directions. You'll notice here, though, that I've got my moved markers turned on, and I haven't turned them off. That's because while I was filming this, I got confused myself with just these 8 fleets, 4 Russian and 4 Japanese. So it's really important to leave that marker on during the operational phase so that you remember which guys have moved and which guys haven't. So I'm good with this, so I'm going to, let's just give you a sneak peek. Russian Fleet 1 and Russian Fleet 2 are the main force of the Russians, and Russian Fleet 3 is the AMC, the armed merchant carrier, and then the 4 is the decoy. And for the Japanese, 1 is the main fleet, 2 is the slow fleet, which has coast defense ships, and then 3 and 4 are the decoys. So the decoys are racing to get someplace, and we're going to find out what happens then. So I'm going to take you back out, and I'm going to continue plotting and moving, and then I'll come back in a few minutes. Welcome back. So we've taken a few moves, and the Japanese have moved to intercept the Russians, and the Russians are fanning out to reach their targets. We're going to try and get the east coast of Japan with the raider fleets, and we're going to try and pick up some merchant ships here in Gensan. So that's where the Russians are moving, and then the Japanese are moving to intercept them. Now remember, some of these task forces are dummies and some of them are not, and we're going to work with that in a few minutes. When I saved this, I noted there are notation markers in the game markers, and I put one down that just said it's move 9, and we're supposed to be plotting 10. And if I double check the turn track, I can see that, yeah, in fact, it was turn 8 that we were on. So we're now going to move to turn 9. So let's go ahead and do that here. So to move that, I have to click on the command key and move it to command key, and then move it. Then let go of the command key and drag it to 9. So now we're on turn 9. So in turn 9, I'm going to get rid of these markers. And again, you right click on them and hit delete, delete. And I'm going to check my markers for the Russians first. So I've got these all up and they're just windowing behind the other, which is actually kind of convenient. So I'm going to move this and make sure that I've got Russian Fleet 3. There's Russian Marker 3. That's the merchant cruiser. And it is due to go into N26 in turn 9. We should be working on turn 10. And in turn 10, we're going to go to M25. Okay, and then for the next Russian fleet, Fleet 4. And you can see why I did this without you guys here, because this takes just a long time to do all the plotting. But it is part of the game that's really important, unfortunately. So I'm going to take plot 4. This is a decoy fleet, and I'm going to move it 2 hexes because it's behaving like it's a 1 slow. So I'm going to go from O28 to N28 to M27. Okay, and then I'm going to check fleet numbers 1 and 2. So let's get to 1 and 2. So here is fleet 2, and I'm going to be in turn T37. So I'm going to move 2 after that. Actually, I'm going to move it to, it's in T37. I'm going to move T38 and O38. T38, O38. All right. And then for fleet 1, I'm going to be in S34 is here. So I'm going to move T35 and T36. So T35, whoops, and T36. Good. So I'm plotted 10 for the Russians. We're going to plot 10 for the Japanese. So let's find fleet marker 3 and let's do that one. So there's fleet marker 3. So fleet marker 3 is going to be in M26. M26. So I want to bring him closer to Jensen to deter the Russian. So I'm going to go from an M26 to M25 to M24. M25 to M24. Now, this ship is moving at 2 apiece. So if the Russian player is paying attention, he can see that that's not one of the slow fleets. But you don't really know where the Japanese have. I don't think any of them are slow, so they get to move it all the time. So now we're going to go down to piece number 2, fleet number 2. This was marker number 2. and I see that I'm in R29 at the next turn. And so I want to come up and I'm going to move it to 1 slow. Now I could go check that, but I know for a fact that Chen Yen is a slow. So that's why I'm moving at 1 on odd turns, 2 on even turns. So for turn 10, I'm going to go from R29 to Q28 to P29. All right, and the space there because I ought to. All right, and then let's find marker 3. We've got that one done, so let's go down here to marker 1, and I think that fleet is right down there. Yes, it is. It's going to be in V32. So from V32, I'm going to go to W33. So that means V33, then to W33. So there's V33 and there's W33. And then for my last fleet here, this is fleet 4. So I'm going to bring up the panel for that, move plot, and there's 4. And 4 is again a decoy. So it's moving as slow, fast. It could move just all fast. So I'm going to start doing that now. And I want to get that up to that straight there. So we're going to go to Z 37 and then Y37. Okay. And so that's it for my plotting for turn 10. Everybody's plotted. Now, this is actually the part of the game that gets a little bit interesting and complex. You have fuel usage. So we need to figure out the fuel usage. The way you figure out the fuel usage is in section 15 of the rules. And I'm going to try and get it right here, but you might want to read it up. So every time your ship moves 1 zone, you make a mark for moving 1 zone, or you can count them up. That's fine. But 1 zone at a move gets you 1/24 of a fuel point. So you've got to count to 24. So 1 move equals 1 point, 1 fraction. Then if you move 2, then each of those 2 C zones counts as 3. So if you're going to move 3, like here in turn 6 on this guy, I actually incurred 3 fuel points for each hex I go into. So that's 3, 6. If you move 3 C zones, then each one's worth 4. So it works out sort of a geometric progression. So the faster you move, the faster you burn the fuel. So we need to figure out about where we are with fuel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark these down in 24ths of a point, and then we can figure out what we have to subtract. So if I'm looking at fleet marker 1 for the Russians, we've gone 1 plus 3 plus 3, so that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then 15 plus 6 is 21, that's 22, and that's 26. So at this point right here, we have used 26 fuel points. That means that we need to go into that fleet and take 1 box off of each of these guys and then leave a remainder, right? So we go divided by 24, and then the remainder is 2. Okay. So now I'm going to go open that fleet up, and I'm going to go to my Russian markers, open Russian fleets, and then I got to remember where I was. Was I on fleet 1? Okay, so we're going to go back to fleet 1. So here's fleet 1, and we get all these guys, and now we open up their ship data. Wow. Okay, this is really getting confusing, but here we go. So Rurik loses 1. All right. The torpedo boats have shared fuel, and now we're in trouble. I did not notice that. So I think that I need to double check this, but if I don't, then need to, these guys are all dead in the water. So we're going to play them dead in the water for right now. So they share fuel of 1. That means they need to fuel every turn. That's ridiculous. I've got to look that up. Okay, and so then torpedo boat 2, we're going to click that. I'm going to keep moving these, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to check them when I'm not doing the video. So let's go back here. We won't worry about that for right now. And we'll go fuel 1 there. I'll go fuel 1 here. Okay. So the Grand Boy is done, and the Russia is done, and I think we're good. So I'm going to check the other fleets, and I'm going to mark off the fuel consumption, and I'm going to be back after that. So I've gone and added those fuel values in onto the different ships. And what I found, as you noticed before, was on the ship data sheet for the destroyers, they only have one fuel box shared, which I think is a misprint, but I don't have access to that piece of data right now. So I'm going to go ahead and try something different. And I've created a new fleet, and I've dropped the 2 destroyers into that fleet, and they are dead in the water. So fleet 5 is now just those 2 destroyers, and there they sit. So they're going to stay there and the rest will move. So let's check the move plots on all these guys. Let's start with the Russians. All right, and then the Russian move 4 marker, and this is turn 9, we're actually moving. So it moves into 028, and we need to keep this separate so I can click on it easily. All right, so I moved into 020. Where are we at? We moved into 028. Right, so that's where it is, and we checked fuel, and it still has fuel. Right, so now fleet 3, Russian fleet 3 is going to go, and we're going to put him into N26, and he's got 22 fuels. So there's N26. There we go. And he's got 2 fuels left. All right, we don't need that because we just pulled out of there. And let's go down to fleet 1. Get its move plot, and it's going into S34. All right, and turn 5 is just going to sit there like a lump. So we're going to mark that as moved. And then 2, we're going to check its movement plot, and it should be T37. And it is, so it's going to T37. Great. So there's the Russians have moved turn 9. Japanese are going to move turn 9. So they plotted 10, they're moving 9. So I'm going to go to move plot for Japanese marker 3, and look at that. Boy, howdy. It's going to go into N22. I got to see that one. My eyes are bad. I said that before. N27, and then M26. All right. Now, this is an interesting part. I'm going to come back to that, but you'll notice that Fleet 3, Russian Fleet 3, started in N27. Japanese Fleet 3 started in 028. So at some point in the turn, they were in the same hex, perhaps. And this is how you figure it out with this game. So if you move into a space where a fleet started, passed through, or ended, and 2 fleets are in any combination of those, then there's a chance for a sighting. So we're going to come back and do a sighting chance. And the interesting thing is the Russians, if they sight it, will figure out that it's a dummy fleet. And then if the Japanese fleet, I don't think that it's even going to know what the composition of the Russian fleet is because, of course, there's no ships there. So it might just show up and say, hey, it was a dummy. I think that that's probably what we're going to do until I get clarification on that rule. All right, so let's go to the last ones here. So let's check out item number 2. Okay, I've done just a wee bit of research, and when an fleet comes into contact and it's a decoy, it's removed from play. So we're going to check to see if they've actually made contact here. So remember, the Russian fleet started in N27, the Japanese in 026. They shared N27 for some amount of time. The way we figure this out is we go up to the top of the chart here, and you'll see in the search table there's a condition daylight 4 or greater. Is it daylight? The move plot will tell us it is actually daylight. So we're good. So in daylight, I need to roll a 4 or greater to sight. So the Russian is going to try and sight the Japanese, and he's going to roll 1 dice. and it rolls a 1. So it does not make the sighting. So the Japanese decoy fleet stays because there was no contact made. All right. So I'm going to move down to fleet number 2, the Japanese player, and we're going to look at that movement plot, and we're going to move there. So that's R29, and got to remember to get both of those at one time. R29, and there's 222 fuel taken up, so just mark that out. So it's fleet number 1. The move plot is V31 and V32. So there's V31 and then V32. Boom. Okay. So we're good with that. We're all moved. The next thing we need to do is check out for air search and all that, which is not happening. And we're going to go ahead and close out this turn. So to close the turn, I go to my maps, turn track, and on my turn track, I command click on this guy and move him to 10. And then I close him up and we move to 10. So I hope this is helping you guys out because I don't want you to be bored while we're going through this. And it takes time to play through these. So I'm getting to the exciting parts and just making a best of reel for you. So here we go. And I'm going to pause this. Okay, so now we do have a chance here to hunt some merchant ships. You'll notice that Russian Fleet 3 is within 4 hexes of the Korean coast or a neutral port. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, it should be at the end 27 because you don't count this one hex where you start, you only count the finish. So the Russian player is in space to capture shipping. So to capture shipping, you have to roll a 12 on the, you have to roll a 12. And to find out what modifiers you have, scroll up to the top and then over to the side, and you'll see right here, there's a merchant location table. So here on the merchant location table, you'll see there's a die 1 through 6 and a density across the top. Well, the density for all the Korean Peninsula for merchant shipping is 1. So that means that you only get a plus during daylight. It's a twilight turn, which counts as night right now. So no matter what die you roll here, you don't get a plus. So you need to roll a 12 to find these ships. And you rolled an 8. So nope, there's no shipping found this turn. Right. So that actually is the end of turn 9. And let's go ahead and move 10. So in this section, we saw that we did merchant shipping, and we saw that we did the roll for contact. So the Japanese fleet and the Russian fleet didn't contact. So we've all moved, everything's good. I'm going to go ahead and put this on pause and come back after we've gotten a little bit more movement. Okay, we're back. And we've done a lot of plotting and a lot of moving, and the situation has changed enough to that you need to come back. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this page and see where we're at, the map, and you'll see that a number of counters are missing. All the decoys have moved, and all the decoys have gone into spotting situations, been spotted, and there's nothing there. So they made contact, and there's nothing in the contact. So off they go. All the decoys are gone. Fleet 5, as you know, is destroyers running out of fuel. Fleet 6 is the destroyers from the other group that ran out of fuel, so they're just stationary. We're just finished turn 14 and plot 16, so we're going to change that. I find this is just really convenient to keep up on screen. Turn 15 and plot 17 is what we're coming up to. So let's get there. 17. And our commerce raider here in Fleet 3 has been desperately trying to find ships and hasn't found anything. So he's floating around up there, and Fleet 2 is catching up to him. All right, and then down here at the Tsugaru Strait, we have the Japanese #1 fleet and the Russian #1 fleet. And they've been traveling together for 2 hexes. So that means we have 2 sighting attempts. The first die roll on that sighting attempt was an A, it was a 1. Well, that didn't do it. But the second one is a 2, is a 5. So the 5 and 4 better as a sighting. So we have a sighting. So we are going to go into combat here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the tactical map. And I'm going to zoom that down pretty rapidly because we don't need that so big. And we'll drag it over here. And we want fleets 1 and 1. So I'm going to take it out one more. There we go. And we're going to roll for initiative. So the initiative player, the Japanese player is going to roll 1 dice, and it's a 6, and that means that the Allied player has the initiative. So the Allied player is going to drag his ships off to the edge, and the Japanese player is going to drag their ships to the middle. So we're going to start off with the Japanese fleets. We're going to find fleet 1, and we're going to drag these off into the central area. And the rules here are we need to divide these up. Perhaps we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So no, so we have all the ships that we need right there. So we can just leave them there. And then the Russian fleet is Russian fleet 1. And the Russian fleet 1 takes its ships and drags them off here onto the side where it came in. So these guys, there's only 2 fleets, so they're in just the right spots. So let's click on this guy and let's put them all in one. There should be a minimum of 4 ships in each hex if possible. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to mark the move counters because they're not really moved, and we're ready to start a tactical combat phase. So remember, the range of the guns is 3 here. So we've got a little bit of space to move. So just taking a look at the Russians, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more and take a look at what we got. We've got 3 cruisers with reasonable guns. And with the Japanese, we've got, I'm just going to hold my cursor there, we've got a lot more guns. So, you know, to quote Nathan Bedford Forrest, be there the first with the most. So I'm going to say that this is going to be a defeat, but we're going to play this through and maybe we'll call the game after this because I think you've got an idea of how it works from here. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up tactical phases and we're going to begin the tactical phase. And I'm going to roll this map down so I can see that. So we've started the cycle, there's 4, and then we can determine whether we want to break contact or not. So determine the initiative, we did because we had to set up on the board. And then initiative player, impulse 2. The initiative player moves all groups with a speed 2 or plus. Well, that ain't going to happen. So I'm going to roll for gunnery combat. That's not going to happen. Torpedo combat, that's not going to happen. Then the non-initiative player moves all with a speed 2, and none of them have a 2. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next one. Impulse 6. I move all the groups with a speed of 2 plus 2 or 1. So that's here. So I'm going to move in, and then I'm going to go look at the impulse, the gunnery combat. We're out of gunnery range, but I'm just going to double check. This should be a daylight turn. So let me click on this map and just check. Oh, we are in a daylight turn. Okay, so that's good to know. I'm going to come back to my tactical map and pull the phases up and then pull my tactical map back up. Again, the windowing situation here, there's not much I can do about it. I apologize, but you can find everything. You just have to keep clicking around on it. So I'm going to take my ships and move here. So now we're in gunnery range of primary guns, but we don't have primary guns. So we're going to go another phase before we actually get into combat. So no gunnery combat, no torpedo combat, and now the non-initiative player, well, sorry, I jumped the gun. Now the non-initiative player moved. I'm going to clear moved markers. Now the initiative player moves all groups with a speed. There we go. And now it's gunnery combat. Now it's gunnery combat. So there's lots of ways to do this. We've talked about it in other ones. Another video after action reports. But what we're going to do is we're going to line these up, top 3 to the top 3, I think, and we'll fire that way. The Japanese can work slightly different if they want to, but we'll go with that for right now. So since all fire is simultaneous, you can be very interactive and interleave it, or you can fire all the Russians and then all the Japanese. It's up to you. But we're going to do the Russians one by one, and we're going to fire the Rurik has 3, but the Russia and the Gromoboy have 4. So I'm going to fire the Gromoboy at Kasagi. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I can here. I'm looking for 6s, and I don't have a whole lot of faith in my Russian gunnery. So I'm just going to check the special rules. Yes, glad I checked. All Russian gunnery, the hits need to be confirmed by another roll of 4 through 6. So only half the Russian hits are actually going to hit. So let's go ahead and try this out. So we got 4 guns going from Koroboi onto Kasagi. I'm firing 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 1 potential hit and the 6, and I'm going to roll another one to confirm it. I roll a 5, so it's confirmed. So we got 1 hit on Kasagi. So I'm going to roll my charts up here and look at my Great War at Sea tables and look for my gunnery damage table, and it's right there. Bring this up in the window so you can see the whole thing. So let's roll the dice to see where the hit's located. I rolled an 8, so that is a tertiary gun hit. And the tertiary gun hit on Kasagi will actually take something out. So we'll go to the ship data and look at Kasagi, and we will take 1 tertiary away. All right, good shooting. Rurik has 3 guns. 1, 2, 3, no hits. And then Russia has 1, 2, 3, 4. And it has 1 hit. It needs to confirm. It rolls a 1 and it misses. So there you have Russian gunnery. Now we're going to have some fun. Well, if you're Japanese, you're going to have some fun. So I'm going to try, let's see here. Since we got multiple ships firing, we're going to have splash interactions, and you're going to get minuses on subsequent ships that fire at them. So we're going to fire from the bottom up in this case. So we're going to fire Izumo on Goromboy. And so it has 4. So I'm going to roll 1, 2, 3, 4 for 2 hits, which do not have to be confirmed. All right. So I'm going to mark Goromboy fired. These guys get a fired marker, and Itsumo did 2 hits. So the first hit was a 9, and the second is an 8 on Goromboy. So let's look. So a 9 and an 8 comes to a primary and a hull. Oops, that's torpedo, sorry. A primary and a tertiary. So Goromboy loses. Okay, this is a good one. So let's pull this one up and we'll talk about this for a quick second. So Goromboy loses a primary, and the primary devolves to a secondary. Well, what were those hits again? Let's just look at it. The charts were a 9, 6 and a 9. So gunnery was a secondary, and a 9 is a primary. Okay, so the secondary, it takes effect. Yep. And the primary devolves to a secondary. Since there's no secondary there, it goes to the secondary. So we're going to go. That's half the guns off of Goromboy gone first shot. Okay, so Asama is firing, and Asama's firing 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, 2 hits in a 3 and a 6. And that's going to be on Rurik. 3 and a 6. 3 is a torpedo mount, and a 6 is a secondary. So Rurik loses its torpedoes, all of them, because it lost a mount. So that's gone, and it's secondary. So Rurik is also in pain. And then the next one up is the Yakumo is firing at Russia. So let's mark him fired. And he's got 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. No hits. Okay, so Adzuma. Now we have to worry about the the shots fired. So we're going to have to reduce that by 1. But I'm going to check that because I think I might be wrong. It's always good to check the rules. I just did. And actually, when more than one ship is firing, the subsequent ships to the first firer have to confirm their hits with a 4 through 6. So let's just take a look at this. We have now fired through all of the first four. So Azuma is now firing at Gromoboy, and it now has to confirm hits. So one hit and it has to confirm, and the confirmation is a 5, so it does hit. So now we roll the damage, and on Gromoboy, we get 6. So that's a secondary. Gromoboy takes another secondary hit. All right, we've got problems in River City on Gromoboy. That's not going to fare very well. So now we have Iwate, and it's firing 4 at Rurik, and it needs to confirm these hits. And there was one, so it's going to confirm at 1, and it misses. So Iwate gets a fire marker. Yoshino and Sagi, they both have 1. I'm just going to combine them here and go at Russia. So we're going to roll 3 and a 6. The 6 needs to be confirmed, and it gets a confirmation. So it does 9 damage on Russia. 9 is a primary. So Russia doesn't have a primary, so it's going to go to secondary. Okay. So that is all of the ships fired. So we mark them fired. And now we can go on to the next phase. So I'm going to get rid of this table, just drag it off here so I can get it. Bring the map back, bring the tactical phase. And now I have impulse 12, which is torpedo combat. And torpedo combat is 0 or 1 hex, so we're too far out. And our tertiaries only fire 1 hex, so they're too far out. That's why we only fired the secondaries at this range. So now we find the non-initiative player moves all groups with speeds 2, 1, or 1 slow. So that's Japanese in this case. And they're pretty much ready to take this on directly. So we're going to let that go, and then we're going to have our impulse initiative player moves all groups. Well, in for a penny, in for a pound. Let's try and get some torpedo hits here. So we're going to go right into the same hex. And now it's gunnery combat. So I'm going to pop this open again so that we can see it. In fact, I'm going to mark moved because we've done all our moving that we're going to do. Oh, and we need to clear all the fired markers because it's a fresh phase. I'm going to move the Russian guys off the top. So let's get, just going to put them here for now. They're really all in the same hex, but this way we can kind of see them apart because it's going to be important to be able to access each one of them. And they're really in that hex there. I can do the same with the Japanese. In fact, maybe I'll just pull the light cruisers off. Click my move because nobody's really moved. We're all in the same hex. And now we're going to go do our firing. So I'm going to go to Boy, and I've got 1 secondary. So I'm going to fire 1 secondary at the Iwate. And I've got to confirm it. Oh, it's a hit. Great. Okay. And then the confirm is a confirm. So that's great. So I'm going to bring the chart back. We're going to see what I hit. It was an 8. So an 8 is a tertiary on the Iwate. Okay. Now, because there's no tertiary, a hit that goes to this and there's no other gun to capture, like a primary would take out a secondary. A secondary would take out a secondary. But a tertiary, since there's none there and there's no guns that can hit, turns into a hull hit. All right. Now I'm going to fire Rurik. I'm going to fire Rurik at Azuma. And Rurik has 2 guns left. 1, and that's a hit because we're adjacent, so it's a +1. and a 4. So now that hit has to be confirmed. A 5, it confirms, and then we roll the damage. It's a 7 on Azuma, and that's a primary. So Azuma doesn't have any primaries, so it goes to a secondary. Good. Okay. And then Russia is going to fire at Yakumo, and it's going to take one shot. 5, it's a hit. 2 is not a hit. 1 is not a hit, and 6 is a hit. So 2 hits, both have to be confirmed. 1 is a miss, and the other one's a miss. So all misses. Kind of makes you think the Russians should have stayed in bed, huh? Let's get these all stacked up now. We just need fire. Okay, so now we're going to fire Izumo at Rurik. Izumo has 4 secondaries left, so they're going to fire 1. One's a hit. That's 1 hit, 1 is. And 3 misses. So 1 hit, and it's a 4, and a 4 is a secondary on Rurik, certain. All right. And now Asama is going to fire at Gormboy. It's got, I think it has 4. I'm going to double check though. Yep, it still has 4. So there's 1, 4, 4, and 4. So all misses. And now Yakumo is going to fire 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 was a 5, plus 1 is a 6 because of range. So we're going to go roll the damage on that, and it's a 10. And a 10 damage is a hull with plunging fire if it were plunging fire, but it's not because it's adjacent. So we're going to, well, it's not because plunging fire is at the maximum range of the primary guns, so 3. So it's not working. So now we go back in here and we look at Russia and we add 1 hull hit. Okay, so now those are the unimpeded firing. Now we've got 2 that are impeded. So I'm just going to check Azuma has 3, Azuma has 3, and Iwate has 4. So I'm going to take them all on Russia. So I'm going to roll 7. So this time I'm going to take out my many dice. I'm going to make sure my log is showing. And I'm going to roll okay, 7 dice. All right. That means I got 2 hits, 2 sixes. All right. Now both of those have to be confirmed because they're now firing at ships that have already been fired at. So there's more shell splashes. So that's 1, 2. Oh, there was only 2. Sorry. So 1 was a miss and 1 was a hit. So 1 hit on Russia. And so that's a 2 dice is a 7. And the charts say that 7 is a primary hit. So on Russia, we take a primary hit, and there's still secondaries, so we can take off a secondary instead. And then we mark Azuma and Iwate as fired. Okay, now we've got lots more to shoot here. We've got let me just look at these guys. Shoot data. All right, we've got to actually fire these separately. So I'm going to fire Yoshino and Kasagi. So they each have a 1 secondary. So I'm going to combine the secondaries and take them on Russia. And because they're shell splashes, we have to confirm the hits. So there's hit number 1 or shot number 1, shot number 2, both misses. Now we can take the tertiaries. There's 3. So 1, 2, 3, and it has to confirm, and it does not. So all those are done. So mark fired. Then I'm going to drag all those back up there and move them to the top. Actually, I'm going to move them to the bottom. What the heck? That's not supposed to happen. All right, well, we're good. There's a little display there for damage. It's kind of cool. It's cute. If you click on one of the pieces and you move up, the up arrow, it gives you light damage, heavy damage, no damage. It's just a way that you can kind of keep track of things. In fact, why don't we set it for the Russians right now? So if I go to Russia, I think that Russia needs a heavy damage. And maybe they all need light. And go to Void gets light. And Rurik gets light. Okay, so now they're all in there with their damaged icons. Anyway, that's just for fun. It doesn't actually mean anything game-wise. It just gives you an indicator that something's happened. So we're going to click on the move and get rid of that. Now they're all in the same hex. So now comes the torpedo combat phase. So I'm going to check how many torpedoes Russia, Goromboy, and Rurik. Okay, so the triangle indicates a deck mount torpedo, which is more accurate than a dot hull mounted torpedo. So we're going to fire the 3 from Rurik and Russia and Goromboy. We want to make sure that, oh, look, the torpedo, that was wrong. Got to be careful when you click on these things because you can do damage. So make sure that there is no hull damage yet on Goromboy. But there was on Russia, and there was, there's probably one there. All right, well, we'll come back to that. At any rate, the torpedo mount on Rurik is gone. So we only have 2 torpedoes to fire. So we're going to fire them, and we get a +1 for being in the same hex. But let's look at that and see if we can find that modifier. So Russo-Japanese war table, printed speed, movement. All right. Well, I'm just going to look this up real quick and come back to make sure. And yes, a quick check of the rules indicates that torpedoes fired in the same hex have a +1, but torpedoes fired before 1910 have a -1. So it's a net result of 6. So let's go and take our torpedoes. We got 2 of them. And so we're going to fire a 2 and a 3. Both torpedoes miss. And now Russia and Rurik are all out of torpedoes too. So let's go mark those right now on the ship's data. And let's make sure that that's gone. So torpedo tube, we just put a 1 in there and a 1 there. Torpedoes back to deck mount. So we'll go to 1. Click the button. It's not going to work. We're going to get rid of everything else. All right, so now both of those are covered and they are all out of torpedoes. All right, so next we take all of these guys and they have 1 torpedo each and they're all going to fire them. But let's see, let's fire them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's take actually 3, the bottom 3. Kumo, Asama, and Izumo against Russia. So we're going to fire 3 times with torpedoes, and they get a -1 because it's 1910, before 1910, and they get another -1 because they are hull-mounted torpedoes. So we got 1, 2, three. Well, there's no way they can get a 6, so they're not even going to fire. And they have a +1, and then they have a -1 and a -1. Nope, there's no way that they can hit with the hull-mounted torpedoes. So we're just going to call that a day. All right, so we'll close that up. We'll close this up, bring them back together, and then mark the moved and mark the fired. So it's the next tactical phase. Gunnery combat. Oh, we did torpedo combat. Then we had non-initiative player moves all his groups, including one very slow. So I'm not going to move anything. The non-initiative. The initiative player is going to stay right here and fight it out. And then we're going to go to 19, gunnery combat. So the gunnery combat, let's pull these guys out again. So I'm going to grab Rurik and Goromboy and Russia and put them right here. And we're going to fire each of those. So let's see what's actually left on them. because I think that we've got some issues. So let's take the ship data, and it looks like Russia has 2 guns, Golden Boy has 1, Rurik has 1. So I'm going to fire, let's fire, first of all, I'm going to drag this out the side so that I can come and get them real easily when I need to, because the map's going to come to the top when I fire. So I'm going to fire Rurik at Izuma, and he needs to hit, and then he didn't hit, so he didn't confirm. And so then we're going to go to Boy. Boy's going to fire at Asama, and it hits once. And it's going to see if it confirms. It does not. And then Russia fires, and Russia's got 2 guns, so it fires 3 and 5. Now you get a +1 for being in the same hex, and it gets so it's a 6. Now we got to confirm, and a 6 confirms. So Russia actually hits Yakumo, and it does damage. So let's bring the damage back up, and let's roll our dice. And 8, a tertiary. And there's no tertiary on Yakumo, so it goes to the hull. So we got ship data, and we get 1 hull hit. Well, all right. I think I'm going to call this scenario right here because we don't have a whole lot of Russian ships left, and by the end of this combat, there'll probably be none left that are really viable. So let's go take a look at this. These guys have finished up here, and you can see that Russian gunnery having to confirm that hit is really, really tough, and that takes a lot of the damage out of it. So larger Japanese force with better gunnery defeats a smaller Russian force. So when I look at the strategic situation, all I got is a fleet here that's going to get hunted down by a Japanese fleet, and that's really it. There's not much else going on. So I think that the Japanese have won this. I think that if I were going to play it again as the Russian, what I would do is I would head straight for Korea. I would just hunt up and down the coast for Korea and make him come to me. Now, the Japanese player has fleets that can reach you better, but you can concentrate your forces better. So I would definitely do that. And I think I'm going to double check the actual game to make sure that the fuel content on the Russian destroyers is right, because that doesn't look right to me. At any rate, that's how the operational game works. You play operationally until you get into combat, and then in combat you go to the tactical board. Now, that's it for this demo, but there are going to be more. I'm going to do another just the tactical demo of the Russo-Japanese War, at least one more. These are fun to play, and they're fun to make the videos for. Hope you've enjoyed it. Now comes the business. If you want to go now, you can. The business is that these modules are all thanks to Dr. Benioff and Avalanche Press. We build these with his permission and distribute them to people who own the game. So if you own a copy of Russo-Japanese War that you just got recently, that is from the copyright page should say 2023, then that's good enough for me, and you can contact me and I will ship out the game to you. So thanks very much, and come back and see another operational scenario or another tactical scenario at some point in the future. Thank you.